What's up, everybody, and welcome to PPR podcast number 61. This is the Week 8 recap show and Week 9 preview show. As always, I'm Chase Izidoro, and today we're joined by Mike Millburn, your pigskin idol cameraman, and also the Golden Tripod winner for last year.
Thanks for throwing that in there. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Accolades matter.
Yeah, of course they do.
Accolades matter. As always, we start off with Game of the Week, and we had a huge matchup with Madison and Cathedral. Madison winning 28-14. And yet again, it comes down to that Madison defense. You know, a game-sealing interception when they were only up by 7 points to win the game. And I believe they forced a fumble as well late. For you, how do you view this Madison team? Because now they're at the top after beating Cathedral and being undefeated. They're up there with Lincoln. Do you think they can beat a Lincoln? Are they on that level to take down someone like Roger Robinson?
They're going to have to be up for the test for it. That will be Madison's sternest test. I know it's the last game of the year. I imagine that'll be a game of the week, week 10 or week 11. But the thing with Rick Jackson, you know you're going to get the best effort on defense. They're going to be big on the D line. They're going to be fast at linebacker. You got good guys in the secondary. Special teams played a huge one in this too. I think they had a punt return touchdown. This may be one of his better teams that he's put out there the last few years. And to go into Cathedral and beat a team like that on their home field really shows they could be up to the task to stop Roger Robinson in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. That's probably the biggest point, is doing it at Manchester Field and doing that to that Dons team. You know, and we've seen the Dons be able to hang in games, and, you know, that's kind of the test, is if you can not only beat Cathedral, but, you know, make sure that you're kind of up against them as well. I really like this Madison team from the jump. They got so much talent everywhere, but the defense really comes up and makes a big play every week. And it seems to be like the defining play, the momentum shift play. And I don't know. I think I'm sort of leaning towards I think they can do it against Lincoln, because we saw when Cathedral played Lincoln, it did come down to the wire. It did come down to a pick six at the end. I think Madison has that in them. I think they might even be better offensively, quite honestly, than a Cathedral. I think they very much are at the top with Lincoln right now. But, you know, this Western League, we kind of thought maybe they'd be able to beat up on each other. It now seems like it's going to be a kind of a two-horse race here. Yeah,
it's kind of separated itself nicely these last few weeks. I was with you. Before the season started, you could see all those teams in there, including Scripps Ranch, Saints. You think, okay, you know, these guys are going to just knock each other around once league play starts. But kind of to what you said, it kind of seems that cream has risen to the top a little bit. And it's kind of turned into that two-horse race. Now, could Cathedral get on a run and make it interesting towards the end if one of these teams falls off? Say if Madison or Lincoln loses one of these games coming up? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Sean Doyle does. He gets his kids ready to go every week. But it's going to be tough, especially if Madison and Lincoln keep stacking up those wins in league play leading up to that final game in 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and I love how well-rounded they are on both sides. You know, it isn't just, it's their defensive side. It's the offense as well for both teams. Man, I cannot wait for that game down the stretch run. But I guess we move on to the North County game of the week for this past week. Del Norte with the 13-3 upset over Mt Carmel. I really didn't see this coming, especially with how well Mt Carmel has been playing these last couple weeks. And Del Norte has been on a bad stretch. We saw them open up really hot, but from what Nick James told me, this was just one Del Norte had to have. Just had to have. They couldn't go 4 straight losses. And their defense is what's the most surprising part. We've seen Josh Bell just be dominant offensively as a quarterback this year, and he was running for his life the whole game. You know, what do you kind of take from this Del Norte team, and I guess from Mt Carmel after this loss?
The surprise for me, though, is Mt Carmel, because just a couple weeks ago we had the Mt Carmel RBV game, and that was going to be the real big litmus test for RBV coming into that game undefeated. It was going to be their stiffest test, and Mt Carmel kind of, you know, did their thing. But to only come away for 3 points is kind of like you said, it's a bit of a shock, because they've been scoring points at a pretty good clip for most of this. Now, granted, I don't see a lot of these North County games. I kind of have my own little hub here closer to the station, but it's real surprising. But but kudos to Del Norte, kudos to Coach Cole. I mean, coming off 3 straight losses to get that could be their signature win of the season. I think.
Absolutely, and it could turn things around in a moment. Especially, being that great defensively as well. That's kind of the big standout for me. Is obviously we know Mount Carmel could put up points, but like nobody on their offense really got going except for Ventimiglia because he always does.
Yes.
But Axel Enriquez had a hard time getting going on the run game. Their pass rush was phenomenal, and I just need to talk about Mateen Bagani. Sorry, Mateen. I did interview him too, so I should know that last name. But he's a phenomenal kicker. I saw him at the camp that the Aztecs held, and he was by far, I think, the best kicker I saw there. And I know that multiple schools are now looking at him as well from the Pac-12. To me, I've kind of been keeping track of him this year. He should be up for Special Teams Player of the Year. He's been phenomenal for them, and he had huge kicks in this one in a close game where you need to get those kicks because your defense is coming up, but the offense really isn't. I think they only scored 1 touchdown in that game.
Yeah, exactly. In a game like this where points come at a premium for both sides, you can't have your kicker making mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, you need your kicker to be clutch. You need him to come up when they call his number, and obviously Mateen did. So, kudos to Del Norte for getting that big win last week.
So normally we don't talk about the Pigskin Idol game.
No,
Mike.
I've noticed we don't get a lot of love here on the podcast. That's okay. That's okay.
The honorary game of the week, apparently.
Yes.
But we'll talk about the Pigskin Idol game because you got to go see El Camino beat Torrey Pines.
Yes.
And, we've been talking about this El Camino team more so in the last couple weeks. What was your big takeaway from them? Obviously, we know about the defensive side, but that Torrey Pines team, probably not the best they've had the last couple years, but still a decent squad.
I mean, Torrey still has players, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Remy Barrett, senior quarterback, kid's tough as nails. Wyatt Gardner, running back. Matt Stacer on the offensive line. But Matt Stacer personally played a great game on defense in that second half. But you talk about El Camino, the thing that I knew going in is that's one of the best D-lines in the county, and boy, did they prove it.
Yeah.
Now, the player that I came away most impressed from on that defense, he's not the biggest guy, but I probably heard his name called at least 6 or 7 times. It's Quentin Johnson. That guy was at the line of scrimmage. He was in the backfield. He was wrecking havoc on that Torrey Pines run game. But on the offensive side for El Camino, their running game looked awfully good as well. Devin Serta had a great game. Zuriel Yeatman had a great touchdown run on a sweep. Carson Howard ran a touchdown, threw a touchdown. They're very balanced running the ball. And when you run behind a line that's that big and that dominant at the point of attack, you can have multiple weapons on every side. And Carson Howard had plenty of time to throw the ball. His running backs had plenty of wide open lanes to run the ball. Now you can mention Torrey's a little down this year, but again, it's Torrey Pines.
Yeah.
They're not going to be down for long.
Yeah.
But that's probably about as good and as dominant of a game from a defensive line that I've seen all year from El Camino.
So really for El Camino, because they lost to Carlsbad, so now they're chasing in the Avocado League. And unless Carlsbad slips up, they're kind of not in it. Kind of same thing kind of goes for the Open Division for them as well. But as a D1 team come playoff time, how high do you think their ceiling is? Because I have it pretty high. I would not be surprised if they go to the CIF title this year.
The old adage is always defense wins championships. Yeah, points. Now, you mentioned also playing Carlsbad. They only gave up 20 points to Carlsbad.
Yeah, exactly.
They haven't given up 20 points to a team in San Diego all season, or more than 20 points to a San Diego team all season. So Carlsbad can obviously score, but when it gets to D1 into the quarters and semis and all that, El Camino is going to be a real tough out. Now, whether or not they get 1 or 2 seed, that remains to be seen. There's still a lot of football left to be played. But El Camino might be the toughest out because points. I mean, you just got to be at your best on offense if you want to get anything going against them defensively.
And I love that about teams, especially come playoff time.
Oh, yeah.
Just teams where it's like, we got enough offensively, but we're going to make you earn your win every single time you play against them. I love that about El Camino.
And that's El Camino every week.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to beat them, you're going to have to beat them.
Yeah.
And they will make you earn it.
Yeah, I love that so much. Well, we got Bo Furteg chiming in here with some great South Bay stuff. Chula Vista beating Mar Vista 50-15. Chula Vista is now on a 4-game winning streak. They're now in the driver's seat to win their league and are quickly emerging as one of the top teams in the South Bay. You got to love that from a Chula Vista team because you never really know what you're going to get from them. It could be really down years or it's like, oh, they actually have some decent players. To be on a 4-game winning streak and, might be going on to win their league. You got to love that from down them. And of course, Bo and Nick James love it too, being alumni.
Of course, our fellow Spartans checking in on that one. Now, normally you think South Bay football, you typically think the conversation just starts and ends with modern day.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of good schools and there's a lot of good there's a lot of good football. It's just it doesn't get a lot of the love in the rest of the county, especially a school like Chula Vista. You know, you never really know what you're going to get with them, but to get 4 in a row, I don't care who you are, I don't care who you're beating. You win 4 games in a row, you're doing something right.
And I think that's something I pick up, you know, obviously outside of the East Lakes of the past and modern day. You know, you'll watch a South Bay team, and it's like, okay, they got an impressive win, they lose the next week. You know, and they kind of just battle all with each other. But to get 4 in a row like that, it's very impressive. And I love to see it from the Spartans, man, because they don't get enough love as it is.
Yeah, and it's tough to, you know, it's tough to stand out when, you know, you're not necessarily, you know, consistently good every year.
Yeah.
So when you reel off a streak like this, you know, it's just a testament to the coaching, it's a testament to just how well they've been playing this last month or so.
And then another one to talk about was kind of a surprise with San Pasquale with the shutout over RBV. I don't care who you are as a team. If you shut out RBV anytime, that's impressive. You know, I don't care if it's even Lincoln. If you don't allow them to score at all, that's impressive. And to do that, I mean, that's huge for San Pasquale.
I mean, when you talk RBV, you're talking one of the best quarterback running back duos in Connor Underhill and Gino
Absolutely.
Trapasso. This is a team putting up the first 5-6 weeks of this season. We're putting up points just in massive numbers. I mean, Gino Trapasso was looking like he's just going to run straight from Vista all the way onto the Silver Pigskin podium.
100%.
But I think it's 3 in a row now. Losses for RBV since they started 5-0. Again, still time to get right.
Yeah.
Could just be a little blip on the radar. But no, that's an impressive win. And then, like you said, to keep a guy like Gino Trapasso and like Underhill, keep them out of the end zone and off the scoreboard entirely.
That's impressive.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, and Manny Adiaza had 2 interceptions on the day. That's why I also see was to be able to get the turnovers as well to win that game in a low-scoring game. It's always huge. So we have to shout out San Pasquale, man.
Of course.
That's a big win for them. But now it's on to our top 10 right now. Kind of a lot of chalk from last week. You know, not a lot of movement. But I did put Madison up at number 2. I still got Lincoln number 1. Madison moves up to number 2. Carlsbad at 3. Cathedral 4. Helix 5. Poway 6. Point Loma at 7. Mater Dei at 8. El Camino 9. And Granite Hills at 10. With Muir Mesa, LCC, and Mission Hills just on the outside looking in. I guess the real big talk is I'm not moving Lincoln off the top spot.
You really can't at this
There's
point.
no way.
No.
You know, until I see them lose, I'm not going to do it. But Madison Carlsbad, who really is the number 2? Because, you know, I don't necessarily care about undefeated stuff, but if you're on your record, you have wins over Granite Hills and Cathedral now, that undefeated record stands a lot taller, doesn't it?
It does, and it could also speak to Madison's league schedule. Western League's probably a little bit tougher, top to bottom, than the Avocado League. I mean, I'm a North County guy. I mean, I grew up, Avocado League. So, but the league has to play a little bit of a factor into that as well. I mean, Carlsbad being 6-1, I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you earn those wins. But at this point of the season, through 8 weeks, to be 7-0, to start running the gauntlet through the Western League, where you're going to have nothing but league the rest of the way. I have no issue putting Madison at 2.
I think it comes down to Madison's defense. They've just been so impressive to me. And how they're the ones winning them games, not all by themselves.
Of course.
But they make so many big plays. And until I see them not do that, until I see them, like, they get the game-winning drive going against them, I think they're going to win almost all their games. Now, obviously, they have a huge test with Lincoln coming up down the stretch.
Of course.
But I'm not sure Carlsbad has that in them. We've seen that from a couple times from them. They've also played some very close games. But if I had to take a defense, I'm probably taking Madison over them, even though Carlsbad offense, I think, goes toe-to-toe with Madison's all day.
Yeah, and, I mean, obviously, you talk Carlsbad offense, you talk Julian Sane, you talk Zach Marshall.
Yeah, they're phenomenal.
Zach Marshall fitting like a glove these first couple games with that Carlsbad offense. But, yeah, it's like you said, may just come down to defense.
Yeah, and you know, these are small things we're picking out.
Yeah, it's really nitpicky.
These guys really are the top dogs in this county. But, you know, if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Madison at this point.
I mean, and it's not by much.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Carlsbad, I mean, we love you. We still love you. It's razor thin.
Well, I guess we can move on to the Game of the Week previews for next week. And we start with the Game of the Week. 6-1 Crawford at 5-2 Coronado. This Crawford team, you know, is kind of flown under the radar. and probably doesn't get as much love because they haven't been on the games of the week. But Crawford, man, has been really, really good this year. Hamadi Sharif, Kent Armstrong, Gavin Nguyen, they have such a good offense. And what really stands out to me is, like I keep saying it, they always show up on the play of the week. Like when I look through of like who could make it on the play of the week this week, it's always them. They ball out and they make great plays.
And what I like about Crawford, shout out obviously Matt Marquez, one of my favorite coaches in San Diego, is they never have the biggest kids. They never have the biggest numbers in terms of the total guys on their football team. But I've seen them enough over the last few years shooting idle games and all that, is all his kids give 100% effort.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they're up 42, if they're down 42. His kids never, ever quit. And that's just a testament to his coaching style, to his philosophy, and because he gets the absolute most out of every single one of his players that puts on that uniform.
Yeah, and I love that about this Crawford team, and but they are going against a very tough test in Coronado. Coronado, that's in the same right, kind of has flown under the radar. You got to watch them as well, I believe, against Hoover. What was kind of your big takeaway, especially with Graham Bauer?
Graham Bauer was an awfully, awfully impressive quarterback. He he threw a touchdown, he ran for 2 more. Definition of a dual threat, runs the RPO to perfection. They're real under the radar. Another team that doesn't get a lot of game of the week love. I mean, they get a city game of the week. I know Brandon loves going out to Coronado.
Yeah.
But to put them in the big game this week, it's going to be a real good litmus test, not only for Coronado but also for Crawford. It's going to be a real fun one to watch.
Yeah, and when I was looking up the stats for Bauer, you're very right. It is a dual threat because like a half second I was like, is he playing quarterback or running back? Like I've watched him a lot, but I was like, are they putting him there? Because his rushing yards are through the roof. I mean, he is really a fantastic offensive player for them. And really, this becomes like a pseudo Central League title here.
Yeah, more or less.
With Kearney losing this past week. So it's great to see like a title game on the line. We always love to go cover those.
Especially with 2 teams that usually don't contend for league titles.
Yeah,
that often.
Yeah. If you had to lean a certain way, have you been able to see Crawford at all this year?
I have not.
Okay. So you saw Coronado in person. You haven't seen Crawford. You only seen them on the PPR. If you had to really pick one, which one do you think you're leaning towards?
My hunch would say Coronado, only because I've seen them in person.
Yeah.
I'd probably lean Coronado. No, that's not to say Crawford can't do it. They're 6-1. They've been winning games all year. This will be a good test. It's a good road trip for them. If they could come away off the island with a win, that'd be huge. Like you said, de facto league title.
Yeah.
But no, I'm gonna go Coronado.
I think
probably leaning Coronado.
I think I'm leaning the other way. I think I'm going to go with the Colts. I really like that offense. I think they can, sky's the limit for them. But this is such a good matchup for both these 2 teams, and really just a test to see where they're going to stand really going down playoff time as well.
Absolutely.
But then we move on to the El Cajon Ford East County game of the week, where I will be making my PPR debut.
Look at you go.
Climbing the ladder, man.
There you go. It's all, one rung at a time.
Yeah. 0-7 Grossmont at 5-2 Granite Hills. Really, I've really wanted to see this Granite Hills team so bad in person, because whenever I watch them, sometimes you get the close games, and those are great, and we saw them lose the close one, obviously. But you really don't get to see all of them because they blow teams out. So you only get like the first quarter or second quarter highlights, and it's like, oh, I want to see the other 5 touchdowns they put up in the game. But then when you look at the stats, they spread it out to so many kids. I mean, you look at Parlon Sanders and Nico Tomasello, both of them very viable quarterbacks. Isaiah Jackson, Maxwell Turner, and Zach Darling as running backs. They evenly spread it out to them. But most importantly, I want to see Joaquin Thomas Jr. He's a phenomenal athlete, and every time I get to see his highlights, he looks so impressive out there. He's
one of the top players in East County. He has been for the last couple years.
Absolutely.
And to that point, I mean, when you can spread it out that much, when you can go 2-3 guys deep at running back, even 2 deep at quarterback, to have that kind of depth and to be able to spread it around that much, that's a luxury a lot of teams don't have.
Yeah.
And it's worked pretty well for them, 5-2 so far this season.
Great defensively as well.
Oh, yeah.
They're awesome on the opposite side of the ball. It really is going to, not to say that Grossmont can't win this one.
Of course not.
But it really is going to come down to, can they step up to Helix later down the stretch run? And they're slowly creeping their way towards, I think they can. They have the players. Obviously, Helix is Helix. They're a phenomenal team. But I wouldn't be shocked. This is Granite Hill's team that, very well could have beaten Poway, very well could have beaten Madison. I don't know. I think they're easily a top 10 team in this county. But I think they're kind of showing more and more that they deserve, that they can probably win this league title, maybe upset Helix. Obviously, we got to see more, and I can't wait to watch them on Friday night.
Oh, yeah, I'm a little jealous on that one. That's going to be that's going to be fun. Plus, anytime you get to shoot a game at Granite Hills, it's always a good time.
Yeah, exactly. So for the Pigskin Idol game this week, we got 3-5 Claremont at 3-4 Hoover. You've been able to watch Hoover this year. What was kind of your big takeaways from them as well?
The biggest takeaway for me is the weapons they have on offense. This was a team earlier in the year during their 3-game winning streak. They were averaging around 42 points a game. They were lighting up scoreboards. And basically, the conversation starts and ends with their sophomore running back, Darius Autry. He's quick. He's fast. I mean, he has got soft hands out of the backfield. He's a real big weapon for Hoover and Coach Will Gray. On quarterback-wise, Ricardo Escobar. He's got a good live arm. He's got a good receiver, and Xavier Williams caught a touchdown pass when I saw him a couple weeks ago against Coronado. But the team starts and goes with Darius Autry. If he gets going and can score 1-2 touchdowns, maybe get close to 100 yards rushing, Hoover's going to be awfully tough to stop.
Yeah, and this Claremont team that's got 3 wins as well. It's always hard to judge on Claremont, because sometimes it's a really bad season, and sometimes it's like, okay, they actually have some standout kids. One of those teams that doesn't have that many guys on the bench as well. Almost everybody runs both ways. It's going to be interesting to see how they step up to a very decent Hoover team as well.
Yeah, and that's going to be the toughest test, is when you have to play both ways, when you don't have the numbers, maybe say that your opponent has. It's really going to put a stressor on all your kids to not only play step up and play well on offense, but you got to get right back on the field, step up, and do it again on defense.
Yeah, definitely. So then we move to the North County game of the week. 2-5 Torrey Pines at 4-3 Mission Hills. Torrey Pines, I think they really got a point to prove, I believe. I think this is going to be a very tough test for them, because this Mission Hills team is very good. Players to watch: Henry Davis, who's immediately emerging as a 2-way player of the year, a candidate for tight end, and I believe he plays defensive end. He's been phenomenal for Mission Hills, but really the player to watch, Santiago Salas. Probably the most underrated player in this county, but definitely the most underrated running back, in my opinion. He's phenomenal, and he just doesn't get as much love as people should be giving him. But man, he is such a good running back up there for the Grizzlies.
I mean, and he kind of gets lost in the shuffle when you talk about not just running backs, but North County running backs. I mean, when you have Connor Rath, you have Gino Trapasso. Those are the guys you think of when you think North County running backs. But to see what a guy like Santiago has been doing this year, for a Mission Hills team that's consistently good. They consistently run the ball well. You know what you're going to get out of that offense. And to see what he's been doing so far, it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I would probably say Mission Hills has the advantage here. They've kind of been on a little bit of a stretch that hasn't been the greatest. But I do also believe that Torrey Pines team is better than they have been playing of recently.
And when we had our Pigskin Idol in this past week, it plays for Torrey Pines, Dylan Friedland. And Paul asked him, is it a down year for Torrey Pines? And he said that Dylan said that this was probably the best complete game that they've played. They knew what they were getting when they take on a team like El Camino, but to see how Dylan described that game, that it was the best that he said that they've looked together, they fought together, and if they can turn it around, and this would be a good place to start. I'm not going to necessarily call upset watch on this point, but Torrey's going to give them a better game than probably most people are giving them credit for.
I think so too. Then we move to this Jersey Mike City game of the week. 5-2 Mission Bay at 1-5 Canyon Hills. This Mission Bay team has been phenomenal offensively. Ethan Silber, Jacob Sloan, David Meyer have all been great in the passing game. And Mission Bay really has to keep the pace because there's a big matchup coming out of the City League as well this week. Maybe they can kind of hope for someone to slip up down the line. But this is a real big opportunity for them to play a Canyon Hills team that's not one of the greatest teams in this county, and they can put up a lot of points against them.
Now, when I saw Mission Bay last year, obviously Clash Osborne, great quarterback. So I thought, okay, I saw Ethan Silber in a little bit of mop-up duty. in a couple of their games last year. Really liked what I saw, and I thought, okay, there might be a little bit of drop-off next year once Clash graduates. There's been no drop-off.
Yeah, definitely.
Ethan Silber has taken that next step from where I saw him last year to being that guy for Mission Bay. And to still have a guy like a Jacob Sloan, and it's kudos to their coaching to all the skill guys they had last year, and you lose a big piece like a Clash Osborne, and just to have no drop-off on offense. That's a real testament to not only the coaching staff, but also to those kids who, it's like, oh, Clash is gone, but we're still a good football team.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. And then we move to the National City Mile Cars South Bay game of the week. 3-3 Otay Ranch at 3-4 Mater Dei Catholic. Otay has been on a great run, the 3-game winning streak, but this is going to be the biggest test for them.
Oh, for sure.
Mater Dei, they have been doing what they did last year now. They are put up 130 points in the last 3 games, have given up no scores, no field goals, no safeties, nada. They are back to doing what they're doing. This is going to be a tougher test. I would not be surprised if Otay puts a lot more points on the board than the last couple teams. But can Otay even, I don't know if they can be in this game. No disrespect to them. But this Mater Dei team, I think they have a point to prove after those first couple weeks.
Yeah, and because the way the season started for Mater Dei, that's not what they want. That's not what they're about. It's just, they had a murderer's row to start this season. And they knew it was going to be tough making that jump up to D1. But the proof's kind of been there the last few weeks. They're still really good. They're still D1 Cats that are going to play at the next D1 at the next level. There are D1 guys all over that field. And it's kind of, they've been doing just what this is what we expected Mater Dei to look like.
Yeah.
But to see Otay, again, another team that, that doesn't get a lot of game of the week love on the show, but to see them on the streak they're on right now, also very impressive. It's been a good stretch for some of these teams in the South Bay. It's been some good football all around.
Definitely, I agree. And this Mater Dei team, that Lincoln game really did feel like the breaking point. It felt like that had to be rock bottom because it wasn't just the way you lost. It wasn't just the loss, it was the way you lost.
Absolutely.
And since then, they've just kept on going. Things could have fallen apart, but they just kept on playing their ball. And I honestly love to see it because I love this Mater Dei team. I really do.
Absolutely.
And one game we have to talk about. It's not one of the games of the week, but it'll be some Saturday night football. We got UC taking on Point Loma for really what should be the City League title game. I've been waiting for this one for so long.
Star power everywhere.
I love these teams, dude. These teams are so good. I love the UC team, the Point Loma team. The stories behind them as well. The UC coaching staff being at Point Loma, not getting the job, so then they go to UC, basically now the rivals of Point Loma. And then Point Loma team being this unit that's been together since Pop Warner, national title winners of Pop Warner, and now growing all the way to this point where they weren't like this last year. The same kids almost, but they weren't as good as they are now, and they are clicking on all cylinders. It's so good to see this. I have no idea who's going to win this one. Because 1 second I'm leaning, all right, I think it's going to be the Pointers. And then but UC's got a lot of good dudes.
I saw Point Loma the first game of this season when they hosted Santana week 1. Jackson Emerson at quarterback. He's got great weapons in Drake Cobb and Aaron Lee. Brady Allen. But obviously, when you talk Point Loma, you're talking the lumberjack, you're talking Chase Lowry. He's really been coming on the last few games, but on the flip side, it's a real three-headed monster that UC running game has. You got LaDainian Lawrence, one of my favorite underclassmen county, Tote Harris, and obviously Sam Cooper, the fourth. All three of those guys over 400 yards rushing apiece. So you know what you're getting out of that UC offense, but man, that's going to be a real tough test for that Point Loma defense because you never know where the ball is going to go when the Centurions are on offense. It's going to be a fun game.
Absolutely, and I think that'll probably be the big spectacle will be UC's offense versus Point Loma's defense. But really, I think where the game is won's on the opposite side for both teams.
Yep.
We know Point Loma can put up points, but they're not like the flashiest offensive team.
No,
they're not. They're beatable. I'll say that. It's not like they're unstoppable, but they are very good. That UC defense has been shaky at times. They're known to give up points, but they also have a lot of good players that they can make the big stops. it's going to be so impressive to see that side of the ball, who comes out on top, because that might make the difference in this game.
Yeah, I pity the poor scoreboard operator because he's really going to have his work cut out for him on this one. There are going to be some scores in this one. I'd go watch this game. I'd go pay to watch this game. I might get paid to go watch it. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, this is going to be this may be one of the most entertaining games of the year.
Absolutely.
By far.
Absolutely. Just so much star power. And quite possibly there could be 2 Silver Pigskin podium guys here in Cooper and Chase Lowry. I've been campaigning for Chase Lowry. I'm all about the neck roll and the lumberjack. That guy's been balling out.
I mean, it's the best feeling in the world. We've grown up like winning with each other since we were 5 years old, having a really tough season last year, and then building off of that and coming in the offseason, having new coaches coming in and just building and bringing us up. It feels amazing right now.
But Sam Cooper, he does so much for that UC team on every facet of the game.
Everywhere.
Watch corner. Rush it. Strike Cougar on 1-on-1, ready? Let's go! Yo. Hell yeah. Go. Come on, you're not gonna smack me up. Let's go, turn up.
And I was so bummed when I saw Point Loma week 1, because it's like you. I was like, oh man, I finally get to see Chase Lowry. He didn't really play that much.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a
don't you just love when that happens?
Yeah. I was so amped all week. Oh, I finally get to see Chase Lowry, and then he doesn't play that much on offense. Plays a little bit on defense, but not a lot of carries on offense. So Chase, love you.
Yeah, but I mean, since then he's been phenomenal rushing the ball for them as well. It seems like they've gone to him a lot more, especially in goal line situations. And why wouldn't you with a kid that big?
I was gonna say, line him up on the 1 yard line. Who's gonna stop him?
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait for that game. But that'll just about do it for us this week. Check back in for PPR podcast number 62, where Joaquin Thomas Jr. of Granite Hills will be on with Paul and Bert this week. But until then, we'll see you guys next week.